Metroid Prime is a good game. It's so full of atmosphere, mystery, and scan logs. You'll do a lot of scanning in this game. So if you have experience working in retail, you feel right at home. You'll even learn about the anatomy and drive of Gen Z in this game. A basic nerve to detect nutrients. Write that down! Prime is one of the best Metroid games out there. It completely revived the series with this one game alone, and this is how the games stack up to each other. Just remember, my word is final, so you better erase that comment you started typing right now. Metroid Prime was actually my introduction to Metroid. There were no Metroid games on N64, but my first introduction to Samus as a character, that was in Super Smash Bros. 64. After seeing screenshots of Prime in gaming magazines, it looked like it was gonna be a good time on GameCube. Before this game, I knew Samus as the cool robot from Smash Bros, which shot spicy pellets at Donkey Kong, making me pause the game so I could take a closer look at Donkey Kong's skeleton. Anyway, people familiar with the series look fondly upon this game and what it achieved. It was released in March 2003 in the EU, with Fusion launching 4 months prior. The Prime series has a self-contained story taking place between Metroid 1 and 2. But a lot of Metroid's canon has to be taken with a grain of salt with all these plot holes. Before Prime and Fusion, the Metroid series was on a hiatus of a bit, with the last game being Super Metroid released in 1994 on Super Nintendo. It's okay. Eventually is always better than never. Am I right? Did you know Gaming had a video about why Metroid was missing on the N64? And it turns out Nintendo wanted to make a Metroid game on N64, but it was planned to be outsourced to Rare. But Rare didn't want to take that offer since they would be receiving less royalties by making a game of a Nintendo IP instead of their own, so they didn't. But then I read this. It's like, who do I believe? And then when you think about it, how are we gonna play Metroid on this? I think it would rely heavily on lock-on targeting. Metroid Prime was the first 3D Metroid game. And back then, many people were curious on how well it was going to transfer from 2D to 3D. Very well, it turns out. They did a good job putting in memorable sections, like seeing your first spider track, which just cements into your memory, and you'll come back here when you have that ability. I love things like that. Metroid Prime's tutorial sequence is lifted straight from Super Metroid, teaching you what the button do in this game and how the new scan feature can be used, and then it throws a boss fight at you. And after you defeated it, it immediately puts you into an escape sequence. Fun fact, in the Super Metroid tutorial, the Ridley fight you just have to get down to 30 energy for the fight to end. Prime starts out with Samus receiving distress signals from a ship, same as in Super Metroid, and goes to check it out. There aren't any enemies here before further in, so you can practice the controls in a controlled environment. While you do this, you get to absorb the atmosphere and eerie vibe of this seemingly abandoned spaceship. Even though walking into the spaceship is just a straight line, it perfectly sets the tone for this place. Upon entering the alpha deck in the spaceship, you can see a handful of dead space pirates, and a big parasite containing very high radiation levels. If you look along the walls of this room, you'll see the escape pods that are already jettisoned. You can scan the terminals and discover that this is a space pirate ship. The save station and map station also returned from Super Metroid, and you can find these on the ship too, which is nice. From reading the terminals on this ship, you'll discover that the space pirates have been experimenting with these parasites you see crawling everywhere, feeding them an unknown substance called Phazon. They're doing this because they want to research what ability it gives them. It's actually crazy how good the updated models and graphics are, while staying true to the original. This is exactly how I remembered it on the GameCube. Exploring further though, you'll find that the locks here are conveniently morph-ball formed, and there's lots of terminals detailing different things that went wrong on the ship. Suddenly you lose control and there's a cutscene. The boss fight, Parasite Queen, is a simple fight. It's shielded by these blue walls, and when you have a clear line of sight you just pump it full with missiles. The fight ends, and in the Metroid fashion there is an escape sequence.
Evacuate immediately. Evacuate immediately. Evacuate immediately.
The escape can be very confusing to new players who are wondering how they're gonna get out of this maze, but the game conveniently makes you escape through a linear path. While escaping, Samus suddenly looks up and sees Space Pirate Commander and supervillain Ridley. You will later learn that they have reconstructed him, making him even more deadly than he was in Metroid 1. You go to activate the last elevator and an explosion slams you so hard in the wall it damages Samus' suit, losing all the abilities you previously had to rely on. This is a staple in Metroids, losing all your abilities and you can find them later, along with even better ones. All of this combines to make you feel like a god in the endgame. Anyway, the ship blows up and Ridley escapes to a nearby planet. Knowing he's up to no good, Samus decides to pursue him. Now you're getting to the actual game, Tallon IV. This is my home. It's so cozy with the rain hitting the cannon and the visor and the heroic music just pushing you onwards. I live for subtle details like this. In this starting area there are 2 doors. One to the right and one straight forward. If you go to the door straight forwards, you'll come to the impact crater. This is the entrance to the final area. This is also where the now extinct Chozo of this planet has locked away what they refer to as the Great Poison. Ahegao girls on hoodies. This is a good point to talk about the 2 things you have to do for 100% completion. Number 1 is collecting all the upgrades. It's easy enough, right? Number 2 is scanning everything. That means all the lore, the enemies and the items. While collecting all the upgrades is fine, all the scans are a bit harder, because you're not sure of what is valuable to the logbook, and the game doesn't tell you what you're missing. And it doesn't make it easier that some scans can only be obtained one time. So if you forgot to scan a boss, now you can't get 100%. Hey, I don't make the rules, it's just how it is. I didn't get all the scans either. I missed the beast and the missile boss, so now I'm locked out. To lift the seal that Chozo have put on the impact crater, you have to collect these artifacts. When you first get one, it seems like more lore entries, but the artifacts are actually the whole point of the game. Unlike in previous games, where bosses had to be defeated to get entry to the final zone, it's these artifacts you have to collect, and sometimes they're very well hidden. It sure encourages exploration and helps getting 100% upgrades, because you backtracked so much in this game looking for them. Believe me, you want to pick up all the upgrades. Collecting the artifacts being the lock to enter the final area, it's not well communicated to the player. If you never go back here, to the impact crater after you've gotten the missiles, you'll never know. Moving on from Tallon Overworld, you come across the elevator leading to Chozo ruins. Tallon IV turns out to be one of the many other planets Chozo have made settlements on. And inside the Great Hall here, the game teases you with upgrades and it makes you want to come back when you have the ability to collect them. The first boss fight you come across is a Chozo statue, also kinda reminiscent of Super Metroid. But it's not the statue per se, it's the bees. But then you're rewarded with the missiles. Missiles in Metroid games is like Samus's bread and butter. They always are about the same power as a charge beam shot and are more spammable. In this game they're even heat seeking if you're locking on. I guess this is because the travel time of the bullets in this game are slow and the enemies move fast, so they added heat seeking so you don't miss while you wait for it to connect. I also love the little squeaky noise from Samus's barrel when she switched to missiles. It's the details like this that shows us that this was made with love. Now you can open up the other door in the Chozo ruins with a blast shield. This leads you to the Morph Ball, and you have to fight a beetle boss. None of the fights up to now has been particularly hard, but how advanced can they be when you only can do 2 things, dodge and shoot? Continuing in these ruins, you'll notice that the waters here are all poisoned. But that's not the great poison that Chozo is talking about in the wall scriptures. You can take a detour to the watery hole and get the charge beam before you move on to get the next boss. You continue in and you find the incinerator drone. Wow, Kneck, I wonder what mechanic this boss has. More fucking bees. You get the Morpho Bombs and now a lot more of the map is open to you. Anyway, the intended progression is that you climb through this 3 rooms to get to the source of the poisoned waters. Flagra, a plant that thrives on poison, but in turn it needs constant sunlight to grow. This boss is a gimmick fight. You can't shoot at the boss, it doesn't do much. Instead you can charge a power beam shot to stun the boss and then flip the mirrors, giving it concentrated sunlight. But how does this boss not burn up from the intense heat of the sun? It's weird because you burn it with your morph balls. But the quad reflected sunlight doesn't cause it to burn with the bombs. It's weird. Also remember to scan the little vines here. If you miss this, tough luck. It's 2 scans on this boss. After you defeat it, you get the Varia suit. The name Varia suit is actually a mistranslation. In Japanese it's called
Varia suit.
Varia suit, its intended name. But the translator mistook it for a unique name. It's kinda understandable because Japanese doesn't have a V sound in their alphabet, so stuff like DVD gets pronounced like this.
DVD player.
I'm getting off track here, but I just wanted to flex a piece of useless knowledge I had here. Upgrades up until now has basically been regaining the abilities you had in the tutorial. No biggie. The game makes you earn the upgrades with some easy bosses teaching you the ropes. Metroid Boys knows what the Varia suit means. Heat resistance. That's right, baby! Time for Magmoor Caverns. Game Maker's Toolkit explained this area perfectly. It's just a subway to get to Phendrana Drifts. That's mostly what happens around these parts. Later upgrades allow you to skip much of the small challenges and roadblocks here. In Metroid games, it's kinda disorienting how fast the game zips you into different zones. The only purpose of Magmoor caverns is to visit Phendrana drifts. And following this very linear path through the magma caverns gets you to the elevator to the polar opposite thematic area. When you're at the party and the boys say, "Put on some real music," this is what I mean. There's some light puzzle work here, and progressing you'll find the boost ball function. Straight after you get the boost ball, the only way to get out of this room is to learn how to gain momentum in a half pipe. So you better turn that baseball cap backwards for maximum speed. Retro Studio does this because it should ring some bells about the other half pipe ramps you've seen up till now. In this zone is also where you get the first beam upgrade, after defeating the big Sheegoth. I could make a joke about how Sheegoth is just a face mom, but I'm not gonna do it. Moving on. After you defeat it, you get the wave beam. The OG Metroid boys would recognize this upgrade, making you able to shoot through walls, just blasting fools, doing the X-Beam special, and it doesn't shoot through walls. The wave beam in this game is kinda terrible. It stuns enemies, that's all fine, but I never used this beam other when the situation required it. The wave beam plus missile combo also sucks, but making the turrets go berserk is always funny. I also love that the arm cannon reconfigures itself in different shapes as you switch them. After getting the wave beam, I got a bit lost. I for some reason thought that the next door forward was in the Chosa ruins. It's still a mystery to me how I missed the wave door beam in Phendrana. So I waste an hour just looking through the Chosa ruins. Can happen to the best of us, I guess. Continuing deeper into Phendrana, the story also ramps up. The space pirates have saved some of the Metroids from Turian on Sebes before you blew it up in the events of Metroid 1 and has begun experimenting with feeding them Phazon. This has created Metroid subspecies, like the Hunter Metroid and the Fission Metroid. They've also relocated the unwieldy Metroids here to pacify them, as Metroids are weak to cold. Space pirates are continuing researching and finding what capabilities the Phazon unlocks in the Metroid. This is also where you learn that even with this Choso seal over the impact crater, there's still some Phazon slipping through and corrupting the nearby land. And the pirates are harvesting it at full capacity. When you venture deeper into the space pirate research facility, you'll find their latest creation, a thermal imaging visor, planned to be used in the quarantine area. Then the power goes out. In this experimenting room, with the walls full of poorly secured Metroids, and you have no ice beam. And then the combat music comes crashing in as stealthed space pirates attack you and the Metroids break out. Soldier, if your heart ain't racing at this point, I'll need you to check yourself, because you're dead. They really did the thermal visor dirty in this remaster. It has some more blurry output like a real thermal, but it's honestly nauseating to use. I don't know why they would change this. After defeating the threat, you now have to find the secondary function for the wave beam. If you use your thermal visor, you can see power nodes hidden in the walls. You can activate them by shooting them with your wave beam. The Blackout and Research Facility has activated these robot sentries, which are just assholes. They'll blur your vision, they'll stun you. It's best just to take them out from far. Moving out of here, it's back to the Chosa ruins, because we're picking up the ice beam. It is now you have access to the inner chambers of the Chosa ruins. And in here you'll run into these bozos, the Choso ghosts. A lot of people seem to hate them. They're not hard, but they take so long to eliminate and they keep jumping around. Your arsenal isn't helping it either. Let's talk about how this game loads things from my experience with the game. In this game the enemies respawn if you unload the room. And the rooms that are loaded is the one you're in right now and the room is connected. So with this in mind, if you progress 2 rooms away, the game unloads the room and when you load it again, it respawns the enemies. Some seem to think that this ruins backtracking, and it's kind of ass. I've heard some wish for it to reload the enemies only after you left the zone. It's a good thought, but it's not how this game loads stuff. So you can just do my strat instead. And my strat is do not engage. Go to the next room, but do not engage. You have to fight the enemy sometimes to be able to fully explore the room in peace, but that's a problem for future you. So, with the ice beam from the Chosa ruins, you get the help prompt, that there's some unusual gravity readings in Phendrana. These help tips give you a pointer to where to go to next, and it's a nice system for people who needs a bit of help, because you go back and forth between zones all the time. So with that new prompt, we have to track through Magmoor caverns again. You see now why the Magmoor caverns feels like a subway to get to Phendrana? Anyway, with both of them checked off, you can now enter the wrecked ship. The same ship as from the tutorial, but it's flooded. It's a cool environmental piece to an otherwise very green Tallon IV. And the music here in the entrance is also top notch. It just makes you want to explore. However, one thing with the gravity suit, it feels weird jumping into water. It has this like regular floating lag sometimes. I wonder if this is intended. Does the suit have to be fully submerged for it to work? Or is it just that the game is a bit slow to check the flag for a gravity suit? I guess we never know. After we traverse through the wrecked ship, you'll find the elevator to the Phazon Mines, the heart of the Space Pirates operations. This is when I took a step back, wiped my sweat-riddled hands off, because I knew we were getting very close to the end. When you enter these mines, the game starts spicing up the variety of the enemies, and the music instantly becomes more ominous. The enemy variety is mainly making the Space Pirates color-coded, only defeatable with each beam's corresponding color. The terminals here further describe on how the Space Pirates have started infusing and experimenting with their own, with Phazon. They describe the trouble they had along the way with the different strains of Phazon causing mental degradation, blind aggression, and with all of them experiencing premature death. But luckily for them, now they have found the perfect Phazon strain and the dosage ratio, and they're naming these new pirates Omega Pirates. Super elites with serious firepowers, a severe warning of what's to come. They'll flank you everywhere in this hellhole, so I always kept my beam charged up around the corners. Some of the encounters are auto turrets, and most of them just comes down to game knowledge. You don't really have to fight the turrets. You can often disable them by scanning a close by panel. While it might not be the fastest way, I love that the game gives you options like that. You feel like a 5-head when it happens. Remember this plant guy? Don't shoot him with ineffective beams. Just shoot the explodey boy right over him. In the Phazon Mines, you find the X-ray visor. And the later areas become, oh, you're stuck? Just flip the X-ray visor, dummy. The hidden platform's right there. They can also locate item upgrades hidden in walls. But I don't know if I like a solution to a puzzle like that. It feels kinda cheap. With the visible platforms. Yeah. Luckily, what's true in the first games is also true in this. The plasma beam is fucking insane. It's so good. And the shots just lands easier due to being faster. And it should be that way. The plasma beam... listen to me, the plasma beam, Jesus Christ. The plasma beam has been a staple in these games. And it goes hard. All the previous enemies you have to shoot 100 times just incinerates with one shot from this crazy son of a bitch. And then when you fully explore the mines, you pause. Check the item collection rate. What the fuck? Where? You take a step back, collect yourself, and think. Do I really want to go through Magmoor caverns again? When you collected all the artifacts, it's straight towards the end. But as you unlock the entrance to the impact crater, Ridley swoops in just to piss you off. This fight is like fighting the dragons in Elden Ring. They're all pussies. They just fly away so you can't hit them anymore. You go up to Ridley and you say, "Want a piece of me, huh?" And you shoot him so hard that his pacemaker stops working. And the old man can't handle the cringe, so he falls off and dies. Fuck you, Mega Man!
I'm dead. You were better when you were a side-scroller, man.
Now the real game begins. Good luck killing all the Metroids in here, because that's a scam, and don't do like me and go back to the ship and refill missiles, because there's a missile station right here. And then you see it. An entity that has been feasting upon Phazon like it's Gump. Don't worry, real G's will know. METROID Prime. This is the creature you've been reading about in those logs. The living being inside the impact crater. This has to be one of the better final bosses ever created, because to beat it you need to use your entire arsenal. I love that it's not just some gimmick end boss like some games, and it's actually the hardest fight. And just as you think you got it, phase 2 starts. Here I figured out you just have to ignore the ads it spawns and focus on blasting it down when the window is open. And after a long and hard fight, you hopefully win. Metroid games are not long games, with most of them showing you the clear time at the end. and the first game to give you different endings on how fast you could beat it. All the way back in 1986 it was already giving you incentive to speedrun it, before speedrunning even was a thing. That's how back on the NES you learned that Samus first was a woman. It was if you beat the game in under 3 hours. Metroid Prime has changed its goal to better focus on the exploration element of this game. In this game, if you get over 75 item collection, you'll see Samus without a helmet during the ending cutscene. If not, it just fades to black before this. And if you achieve 100% item collection, you get to see the plot teaser for Metroid Prime 2. Metroid Prime is not a hard game either, so why they felt the need to add a casual mode is beyond me, but if you found it too hard, more power to you I guess. What is this? Difficulty casual or normal?
You a casual?
Are you playing video game journalist mode or normal? I died a total of 0 times, so I can't really tell you what the death animation looks like or what happens. This game was good in 2003, and having played through it again, I still hold this opinion. You played this game for the atmosphere and the puzzles. The backtracking can get you feeling a bit down if you try to 100% this, but on the other side, you learn the map and you can just book it through the narrow hallways and jump puzzles. It's a reason it resonated with gamers back then, and it's not hard to tell it resonates with gamers now. So you better not let me catch you playing Sons of the Forest instead of this, like I know you will! I will come down on you for doing some shit like that. Hey, thanks for watching. This video took longer than I expected. So if you liked it, leave a like, and if you want, subscribe. And I look forward to see you in the comments. Goodbye.